Alright, hello everyone. Today in this video what I want to discuss with you all is why we should listen to our bodies, how we can do that, and what we're looking for. Okay, and the reason that we want to practice listening to our bodies is the result we're trying to get is optimal, consistent, and predictable energy. That way each day we go about, we can optimize the energy our body is producing and putting out. Okay, and so for the first one, what we can look to listen for is energy demands through our food, right? So how much energy does our body need through the food that we're providing it for, right? I'm sure you've probably heard the term, you are what you eat, but we also are what we are eating is eating, right? So what the cows that we're eating are eating as well is going to impact what our body responds to, right? So grass-fed beef comparative to traditionally raised beef is going to have a different effect on how the body absorbs and responds to that, right? And so one way that we can practice seeing how our body responds optimally to the food that we're putting into it is by rotating our diet, right? Rotating what we put into our body on a daily basis. So for an example, for breakfast in the morning for me, I like to have scrambled eggs with some diced potatoes and some peppers. And then on a separate day, I'll have maybe say a bowl of oatmeal with some chia seeds, some cinnamon, and some cut fruits, right? That way I can have a better understanding of which food my body responds to optimally. A side note from that as well is that it's also going to give us a variety of nutrients, right? What's really interesting is that the solar plexus, which is found in our digestive tract, our nerve ganglions, have more neurons than the brain and the spine combined. So to give you a good understanding or perspective of how much of an influence our digestive tract has on how the rest of our body responds and how our mind is responding to what we just put into our body, right? And so the second one we can practice is movement demands, right? I've talked about this a little bit in separate videos, but trying to get your body moving throughout the day and say every 2 to 3 hours would be ideal, right? And even just getting up out of the chair that you're sitting in and going across the room, going across your house or your apartment complex to get some blood flowing, right? What we can do is assess muscle stiffness or tightness, right? If you worked out yesterday and then you start to feel stiff after that workout or the following day, that's something that you can assess and see, okay, what is it that caused me to feel this way? What is it that caused me to feel stiff? Has this been a chronic problem for me, or is this because of something that I did yesterday? Right? I believe that there's not necessarily one bad posture. It's just staying in certain postures for extended periods of time is what can become more problematic, right? If we're staying in one posture and breathing into certain pockets of our body, that's going to also be altering how our position is in accordance to my spine, my ribs, and my hips, right? If I'm sitting with my shoulders hunched over and my chest collapsed, I'm going to be having a hard time getting air into certain areas of my body. That makes sense. So that can be another positive for trying to be moving and changing positions to assess how your body feels, right? And so that's why I put priority of exercise, right? So that's what I try and emphasize, and I put in a separate video as well of 5 different hacks that you can utilize to get yourself more steps, more blood flow, and more exercise just through your daily practices, right? You don't even have to have excess time to practice exercise. So if you want my cues from that video, just go back to my page and I have it on there as well. And yeah, the last thing that I want to emphasize too on assessing muscle stiffness as well is assessing where you stand on what kind of exercise your body needs, right? So the first one should be no workout routine, should just be how much can I move without feeling out of breath, right? And then after that, then we can work on energy building, right? Building more stamina for your body to tolerate higher intensity exercise. Okay, and then the third one will be stretching, right? So that goes back to, am I sitting often? Am I able to squat down comfortably without any knee or back pain, or hinge at the hips while bending down to lift something up, right? These are other things that you can assess yourself as well. And if you don't understand or know how to fix these problems, that's when you can go about hiring a trainer or going online and doing programming with myself or another trainer. Right, the fourth one would be restoring core function, right? So before we add load to the body, making sure that your core is stable and able to keep a stiff, rigid spinal position, right? So that way, if I'm having you hold a weight, say for a squat or a deadlift, we're trying to see, can we keep a good position in our spine throughout the duration of the movement, right? That's when we can progress to the fifth and final one of functional movement patterns, like your push, your pull, squat, hinge, carry, rotation, lunge, however it may be for your pillars that you have. Okay, and so that will be for the second one, right? Movement demands. The third one will be your circadian rhythm. And again, this is something that I've talked about in length to my clients. Sleep patterns, right? What are your sleep patterns? What are your rituals before you go to bed? What is your quality of sleep? Do you have a need for stimulants in the morning when you first wake up? These are all signs that your body is trying to tell you if you need stimulants or if you need that extra kick of energy, you need that extra donut or rush of sugar or rush of insulin. That can be a sign that your body could be deficient in restful sleep, right? Maybe it's not getting to that final REM stage of sleep, or another problem could be underlying that, right? And that's what I put at the bottom. The three primary hormones that your body relies on creating are insulin, cortisol, and adrenaline, right? So if you have chronic stress and you wake up from your early alarm clock and then your adrenaline starts to spike, and now your body is on overload of using these two hormones right now, it's going to need something else to spike its insulin, and that's what's going to cause you to have those cravings of, say, coffee or an espresso immediately in the morning, right? Before having any coffee, as a good guideline, what I like to tell my clients is you should be having at least 2 tall glasses of water. And the water should be at room temperature, right? If you're having cold water, if you've ever had that feeling of drinking water too fast and you feel it kind of sloshing around in your body, it's because it hasn't fully digested it yet and it hasn't been able to convert that water to room temperature. So your body hasn't even really been utilizing that. That's why it's very important to be aware of even just the temperature of water that you're drinking, okay? And so with those 3 things, I think if you're better able to practice these on a regular basis, you can be more in tune with how your body is responding to what you're doing to it, right? How we're treating it physically, how we're putting food into our body, what we're putting into our food, why are we eating? Is it because we're bored? Is it because we're stressed? Or is it because our body needs nourishment, right? And that's what goes back to that rotational dieting that I was talking about initially, is exploring with a different variety of foods, right? Exploring with different movement patterns, right? Have I moved in the last 2 to 3 hours, right? Have I gotten out of this hunched over position staring at my screen, right? I've fallen victim to that a lot, especially lately in these last 6 weeks, having been stuck with the quarantine, right? So being able to find new and creative ways to do this is what's going to help us break past this and be able to progress and still optimize our health each and every day. So if you found any of these tips helpful, please feel free to let me know. Leave a comment, like my video, or just send me an email, all right? I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Thanks, stay safe, and keep sanitizing.